What's up? It's your boy Tunnel Vision. We back for another one. Yo, still don't have my car back. Still in the rental. No tints. Excuse the glare. Yo, there's been some talk where people are kind of coming up with with theories of why exactly Al Haymon and PBC let Martin go to the UK to fight Anthony Joshua. And people keep mentioning this because they're saying, damn, if it was Deontay Wilder that was the one who had fought Martin, he would have been a unified champion. He would have had two belts around his waist, and he would have been even in a stronger position as far as with setting up that particular fight. And they can't figure out exactly why he would do something like that. You know what I'm saying? And people keep saying that he dropped the ball when it came to that. And the answer to it is very, very simple. Actually, it's not a complex situation or anything like that. They did it because it was in the best interest of Martin that he go there and do that fight with Anthony Joshua. It's like if you're trying to sell a car for $2,000. You have a car that's worth $2,000 and somebody's trying to give you $10,000 for it. You sell it. You sell it. You know what I mean? You sell it. It's just what you do. That's what it was. They were offering him substantially more money than what he was worth. I mean, that man walked away. They said, what was it, $9 million he walked away with? He walked away with a substantial amount of money. That guy walked away like $9 million. It was in Martin's best interest. And when it comes to Al Haymon, yes, Al Haymon looks out for the best interest of PBC and the brand and everything like that. He tries to, do what he can to catapult the brand and make it stronger. But at the end of the day, he does what's in the best interest of his fighters. And when he's looking at one fighter, he's looking at that fighter. He's not looking at, how does this affect these other fighters that are part of the brand? No, he's looking out for you. What's in the best interest of your situation? He doesn't care about what's going on with everybody else. And that's part of also why the reason why people love Al Haymon so much. Because he's going to look out for you and what's in the best interest of you, regardless of where you are in the totem pole, whether you're all the way in the bottom or where you're all the way on the top. And that's how they do things. And they've always done things like that. They've always done things like that. That's why when it came to somebody like a Terrence Crawford, not a Terrence Crawford, when it came to somebody like a Deontay Wilder, they didn't necessarily want Deontay Wilder fighting Luis Ortiz. They knew that was a dangerous fight. They knew it was a super sketchy fight. That wasn't even as mandatory or anything like that. But Deontay Wilder wanted to do that fight. So they did that fight. Because that's what he wanted to do. When it came to the Anthony Joshua situation, they kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Wilder finally said, yo, take the $15 million. I'll take the $15 million flat. F it. They're like, dude, you're giving up a whole lot of ish. Even the head of Showtime said he looked at that deal. He said that was the most one-sided deal, Espinoza, the most one-sided deal he had ever seen in the history of him working, in boxing. He'd never seen a deal that one-sided before. But he said, yo, now do it. F it. Take the 15 flat. They went ahead and did it. It wasn't in the best interest of the brand for them to do that. It wasn't even probably in the best interest of Deontay Wilder as far as the amount of money the L they were taking. You're talking about even the managerial fees that people take, even Al Haymon, even though he only takes like 3%, 4%, 3% of, or 4% of 15 million is a whole lot different than 4% of 50 million. But at the end of the day, that's what Deontay Wilder wanted to do. So they did what was in his best interest, what he wanted to do. And that's how they roll. They don't look at other fighters. That's why you got someone like a Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz don't want to fight nobody. He don't want to fight nobody. They're still going to look out for him. They're still going to get him fights here and there as they can get him. They can't really headline him right now, because they can only do that if he fights. When he decided that when he was going to fight Frampton, when he was going to fight Morris, those are big fights. So they're able to make those, big time headline fights. But if he's not going to fight guys like that, then, they'll give him lower tier fights or they'll put him on undercards, things like that. And he still gets paid. Because he still had a fan base, until he decides, all right, now I want to do this. Like when it came to people like with Earl Spence, they're like, yo, why? Why aren't they getting all these other fights? Why isn't he able to fight Sean Porter? Why isn't he fighting Danny Garcia? Because those guys didn't want to fight him. They didn't want to fight him, but what they did was they said, you know what? We're still going to build you up, though. We're going to, Lamont Peterson's willing to fight you, so we're going to give you that fight. Bundu's willing to fight you. We're going to give you that fight. You know, then from that, they put him into a big, huge fight with, what's it called? They put him into a big, huge, and with the Bundu fight, they put him right in the Olympics. They paid the money for a time slot, and that's an Olympics. So imagine how much those time slots are. They paid for that time slot, where 6 million people watched him knock out Bundu. You know, and then after that, you know, they got him the Al Geary fight, where he was headlining. They got him the Lamont Peterson fight. And then after that, they got him the huge fight at home, you know, against Uncampo, where 15,000 people showed up. And they just built him up to the point where these other guys were like, yeah, I want to fight him. I definitely want to fight him. And now they're fighting him. You know, and now they fight him, and he put in the work. Gary Russell could have been in that same situation too, but he didn't want to put in the work that Wilder put in, or that Earl Spence put in. He didn't want to put in that work. And then they finally put him to space where he can get those fights. With Deontay Wilder, yeah, they couldn't get him that fight. He was supposed to fight the guy in Russia, Povetkin. He already had a fight coming up. So if he didn't have a fight coming up, then they might have been able to work something out. But they were just offering this guy so much money, man. He had to do it. It was in his best interest to do that fight. And with Deontay Wilder, it honestly didn't matter, because they still helped build him up anyway. Deontay Wilder did what he needed to do inside the ring. Deontay Wilder did what he needed to do when it came to talking with the fans and talking with the media and continually pushing his point. That's helped progress him and build him up into a star that he is right now, to the point where he was able to go to these different outlets where the Zone's offering him a massive amounts of money, where ESPN's offering him massive amounts of money, and then where he was able to, you know, utilize those figures to get the money that's getting paid now as leverage. You know, from the Dominic Brazil fight for this fight, both fights getting paid $20+ million. And we don't even know how much he made, because they had a bidding war between Showtime and Fox. So we don't know, because remember, it's not only Deontay Wilder, it's Bomb Squad Promotions. You know, all these promoters aren't doing this. We always hear about the fighters, what the fighters make. We never really hear about what the promoters are making off of these. And clearly the promoters are making a whole lot of money off this. We never hear how much Bob Arum's making, but clearly Bob Arum's making a whole lot of money. He's been doing this for years, and he's worth a couple of $100 million. So they're making a lot of money. So what happens when the fighter is actually not just figuratively, but it actually is a promoter, actually is getting promoter fees, you know, actually is getting huge portions of the gate, actually is getting a huge portion of the concessions when it comes to the people who are promoting their brands with the Coronas and everything. He actually is getting a huge part of that money. You know, actually does have television rights, the ones that the promoters usually have. That's why when Bob Arum moves from place to place to place, he can just, you know, have this new entity put out the Ali fights and the Frazier fights and the Sugar Ray Leonard fights, because he owns the rights to all of that stuff. So what happens when the fighter owns all those rights? So we don't know how much money he's in. So regardless of him having that belt or not, he's good. And and people keep talking about he would have been in a better situation. He would not have been in a better situation. It wouldn't have mattered if Deontay Wilder had 3 of the belts and Anthony Joshua only had 1 belt. Anthony Joshua was not fighting him, because if he only had 1 belt, he still would have been making the money that he's been making. They just would have got off pushing the belt aspect, and they would have got on to pushing the money aspect. Like, hey, I'm making 20 or 30 or 40 million a fight. I'm generating this amount of money. My gates are doing this. I'm doing this much on pay-per-view. You know, you have those belts, but I am the star. I'm the star the way that Floyd Mayweather was a star. The belts aren't important. I have a belt. I'm a champion. But look at the things that I'm doing. That's all it would have been. The fight still wouldn't have happened. Nothing would have been different. So him having an extra belt would have meant absolutely nothing. 0. You know? 0. You know, it's just at the end of the day, it was in Martin's best interest for that fight to be made against Anthony Joshua, and his handlers and his manager, or his advisor, did their job and did what was in the best interest of him. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out.